Steve King is having a tough time in his race for Congress to get reelected as an incumbent. He's a Republican from one of the most Republican districts in the country, and yet he's made to have some trouble. He's got his own chairman of the campaign committee, the Republican chairman of the campaign committee of Congress, saying this: Congressman Steve King's recent comments, actions, and retweets were completely inappropriate. We must stand up against white supremacy and hate in all forms, and I strongly condemn this behavior. Mind you, this is his own campaign chairman saying this. Sahil Kapur, our colleague down in Washington, has interviewed Mr. King, and he's with us now to give us a report. So what does Mr. King say about all this? Because he seems to be in a bit of trouble.
He does seem to be in a bit of trouble. It was a rare and remarkable rebuke from the chairman of the Republican House Campaign Committee that you don't see very often, especially just 6 or 7 days before a midterm election. Now, I spoke to Steve King about this. He remains defiant. He said he would, in his words, settle that score with Steve Stivers after the election. He's not going to say anything more than he said now. He defends his own behavior. He said he's done nothing, in his view, to merit that kind of treatment and to merit being abandoned by the campaign committee. But he has a history with this stuff. He has a history of inflammatory, incendiary rhetoric and more recently of supporting candidates around the world in places like Europe and Canada who have openly identified and made white supremacist, white nationalist comments. So I think we're seeing a bit of an exodus here among Republicans who say they don't want to tolerate that.
Sahil, for those of us who may not have covered it as carefully as others like you, what exactly did he do?
A number of things. Part of what he did is endorse a number of candidates, political candidates in places like Canada and Europe who are openly white nationalists, white supremacists. That has been a problem. He's been tweeting in support of them. He has been speaking out in favor of them. He's also made comments that have been widely decried as racist and white nationalist here at home, including saying things like he wants a homogenous America. He said last year, I believe, that we cannot rebuild civilization with someone else's babies. That remark drew some condemnation from some of his own colleagues, including one prominent Hispanic Republican. So it's a bit of a pattern with him. And, for the most part, many of his colleagues, I would say most of his colleagues, have been willing to overlook this. But we may be reaching a breaking point here with his party leaders.
Well, so what kind of support is he getting at this point? I see that a couple of companies have pulled out, like Land O'Lakes, and I think Purina pulled out from supporting him. At the same time, Ted Cruz is still his friend, it appears.
That's right. So the two of them have an interesting history. Ted Cruz ran for president in 2016, as we all know, and Steve King was a co-chair on his campaign. King is in Iowa, and he's a conservative in Iowa. He has a base of support there, and that's obviously an important early state that presidential candidates want to build support in. So, Cruz landed Steve King's support, his endorsement, and King was a co-chair of his presidential campaign. And the two have been friends. They have been ideological allies on a number of issues, including on immigration for the most part. And Ted Cruz called Steve King yesterday, according to my reporting, and essentially, according to King, conveyed his support for him. Now, the Cruz campaign says it was a personal call, and that the two are friends, and that Cruz told King exactly what he has said publicly, which is that he is disappointed by King's remarks. Although importantly, Cruz did not condemn King or renounce him.